We'll go to the session one, and while Jagadanand ji preparing to take over the session, Garam recently undertook a study to understand the challenges being faced by NGOs and NGO professionals in the post-COVID situation. And out of a preliminary analysis, I must mention a few points here, of course, which is not so good to hear for the CSO and NGO fraternity. It says 74% of the NGOs are already in the regressive growth. That means they have gone back 2 to 3 years, behind in their growth. And 49% of the organizations are fearing that they would be closed down in soon. They have to close their, the services soon. And 64% of the organizations said their projects, the ongoing projects, forget acquiring any new project, their ongoing projects are abruptly closed or stopped. And 52% of the organizations said their financial resources for the major projects have been completely stopped. And of course, we, the civil society organization, it's not new to battle with the resource procurement or getting the resources. So with this background, I request Jagadanand ji to take over and speak on resource mobilization for NGOs. What are the challenges we have and what are the avenues available in front of us? Over to Jagadanand ji.
Thank you, Basavaraj ji, Dr. Sathe ji, and Balasubramaniam ji, and Ravi, and the distinguished panelists. Actually, I'm delighted to be part of this conversation, and Basavaraj ji has already sounded the challenges, the huge challenge the sector is facing, and I want to build on from there. Right? There is a systemic reform of the institutional and legal framework for our sector in India, and that is long overdue actually. So the timing of this event, the timing of this conversation, the timing of this dialogue is so critical that I'm so happy that both GRAMA and RMK, they have embarked on a mission to highlight the issues and problems of the sector. And the sector is confused. So therefore, when we say resource mobilization for NGOs, I was looking at NGOs is a negative word actually. So we are known for as NGOs, as non-profit organizations, and more recently the word coming, that is civil society formations, civil society institutions, civil society organizations, which is a good sign, so that, because the non-part is missing in the civil society. So I would inter alia use all this, because in the NGO world, the Cricket Control Board of India is also an NGO in this country. You think of any kind of organizations, entities outside the government, they are NGOs actually. So, but for brevity and for clarity, we will be discussing about the voluntary sector, about the civil society formations, about the sector which is involved in the development work in this country. You see, let me quickly, I have 3 slides actually, because brevity is the order today and we have very little time. I thought if we do not understand the sector well, because I can see in the participants group, there are a lot of academic colleagues who have joined, and welcome all of you, because it's very important for you to understand the sector well, and for us to revisit and redefine ourselves so that it's easy for discussing about resource mobilization, including the social stock exchange. What are the roles and contribution of the sector? The size, the complexity I have already said, from Cricket Control Board to GRAMA, they are all known as NGOs actually. So who is doing development work, who is not doing development work, you can understand actually. But the critical role of our sector is, we are supposed to strengthen the democratic governance. We are supposed to promote sustainable development. We are supposed to ensure effective and quality delivery of public services and entitlements for people who are below poverty line, people who are entitled for something. We are supposed to devise alternative strategies through innovative ideas and solutions to complex issues of poverty and vulnerability. Because this is very, very important. I always believe that innovation is the hallmark of our work. If an organization is not involved in any innovative work, I would say, you don't belong to our sector. So every day in and out, we are involved in innovative work. We are involved in finding solutions to complex issues of poverty vulnerabilities. We are involved in interaction between fragmented communities, between rich and poor, between Dalit and the mainstream, between men and women, between Adivasis and the mainstream population. That is interaction. And then the third role is influencing, actually, to the extent possible, of systems and processes which goes in favor of the people. So that is the role and contribution, and that is extremely important for us to be reminded of that. What is the USP of this sector? The USP of the sector is it's flexible, it's multidisciplinary, it's self-governed, and we are an independent autonomous sector to the extent possible, and we are early champions of new issues, actually. Which I mentioned in my earlier slide, that is innovation. And what is the size, actually? There are a lot of confusion about the size, and the Ministry of Statistics, when they brought out this report in 2012 on the shape and size of the sector through a massive survey, they said, as per their survey, we are about 12. I'm talking of 12. And this survey is based on the data of 2007, 2008. And the data says 31.64 lakh NPOs, they have verified the data, actually. Verified the data from the Registrar of Societies, from all kinds, actually, wherever we are incorporated. And then when they went for physical verification, they could reach almost about 8 lakhs, 7 lakhs some odd. That is the shape and size of the sector. And when you talk of, when you look at the size of the full-time people in the sector, I think it's startling to understand that we are a sector which has a major employer of socially oriented professionals. 1.82 crores at that time, that is full-time employees, with almost about little less than 35% women employees, and 1.55 crore volunteers, which includes community resource persons, our animators on the ground. So it's almost likely about 3.537 crores, almost 3.5 crore log usme engaged hai, full-time, part-time, and on volunteers, which is a huge number, actually. And this number is more than central government, state government employees put together. So that is the size of the sector we are talking today. So I'm so delighted that Ravi and Balasubramaniam ji has taken this initiative to have a conversation to figure out what can be done, actually, to this sector in terms of funding, which is going through a crisis, and social stock exchange is providing an opportunity. So congratulations to all of you who are participating in this event, because this is a historic event. You are all participating. This is going to change the course of the history of voluntary sector in this country. Then what is the shift we have seen in the recent past? The shift is from a welfare to the development. Social welfare relief work, which was characterized in the post-independence nation, is moving to a more development model, to a more rights-based model, to a more model which is supposed to ensure inclusivity, supposed to reach the unreached areas. So there is a major shift which is taking place. Voluntary sector is no more just the jholawalas, who will just go and do some charity work, in relief work. They're involved in very structural issues related to development, whether it's rain-fed agriculture, whether it's watershed development, whether it's promoting micro enterprise in the rural areas. There is a plethora of programs, activities, and range of kind of domains in which the sector is involved. What are the emerging issues now? In future, what I see now, as India moves, I see promoting gender equality is going to become a major issue actually. The difference between men and women, how do you really bring gender into the mainstream of development? Dealing with participation deficits, from panchayat, gram panchayat to the parliament. Ordinary people, we are supposed to participate and we are supposed to be active citizens. Today, the country has become a country of passive citizens. So how do you promote active citizenship in this country where people are able to really take charge of their own development? They are not just beneficiaries, but they are actors of development. How do we combat climate crisis? This is going to become a major issue, and COVID-19 has already demonstrated the crisis in some form or the other. I think there are more crises which are going to come, and we have to prepare ourselves. We have seen the distress migration during the COVID pandemic, the distress migration, the shifting demography, the shifting from rural areas to the cities. This requires a whole range of arrangement actually. The declining role of agriculture as job basket, we have to play a very huge role there. And then for doing all this, what is needed is an effective partnership with the government. So what is that partnership model? What is that partnership framework? And how do we do that? That is very, very important. I know we remain as independent, we remain as an autonomous sector, yet for different purpose, we also partner with the government. So I think these are the kind of emerging issues which are likely to come. Now let me quickly go to the resource situation. Resource situation, I could lay my hand during the last 3-4 years. You see, the sector depends on government grants, support from international organizations, individual donations, contributions, volunteer time, and now of recent past, since 2013, and before that also we had some corporate philanthropy which has a big history in this country, but it has been structured actually. In the government grants, I could not lay my hand on all the state governments. If we add the state governments, this figure is likely to go up to a big number. But just Government of India grants from 18, 19 and 2021, it moves between almost 600 crore to 700 crores every year. This comes to the voluntary sector. This comes to the voluntary sector. And there is a rising trend, but the overall trend is almost, it's 0.023% of the total budget actually. It's less than 1%. Very, very minimal money which goes to the voluntary sector. And now our budget is about 30 lakh crore. So on a very conservative estimate, if there is 1% allocation even to the voluntary sector, the figure can go up. And if we add to the state governments, the figure can be 1.52% of the whole budgetary resource which is available in this country. But this is the situation now. And there are a number of problems here. I don't want to go further, but I would just like to remind all of you, in 2011, Honorable Supreme Court of India, in a read petition number so-and-so, the case was between Manohar Lal Sarma versus State of Maharashtra and others, has directed the Union of India to frame guidelines, rules for accreditation of voluntary organizations and non-government organizations. And now the court is seized. There was a high power committee which was set up by Government of India under the chairmanship of Vijay Kumar, former Secretary, Ministry of Rural Development. The committee took cognizance of the recommendations made in the National Policy on the Voluntary Sector 2007, and the report of the Planning Commission Task Force constituted to develop a methodology for accreditation of voluntary organizations. That was in 2010. But if you look at the voluntary sector policy, the specific objective, the policy was to create an enabling environment for the voluntary organizations, to stimulate their enterprise and effectiveness and safeguard their autonomy. That is very, very important. To enable voluntary organizations to legitimately mobilize necessary financial resources from India and abroad. To identify systems by which the government may work together with voluntary organizations on the basis of principles of mutual trust and respect and with shared responsibility. to encourage voluntary organizations to adopt transparent and accountable systems of governance and management. And around the government grants, in this resource mobilization, I have been part of many standing committees. I was part of the National Standing Committee of CAPART and many other bodies created by the government in the past, continue in some now also. I have seen invariably there is a crisis of second installment. The first installment will come, but the second installment you have to run actually. There is a big crisis. You have to run and run. It may come, it may not come. Crisis of second installment. The grant in aid is decided in such an unprofessional way that genuine organizations may not get, and some agency which is not in operation, they may be able to sneak their way to the grant in aid system because it's a non-professional appraisal. So how do you really look at that? That is one area I thought I will just open up for conversation. The support from international organizations, that is the FCRA receipts, last 3 years, the Parliament data, it's almost about 17,000 crores. And out of this, all that is not coming to the voluntary organizations, let me tell you, right? Because if you look at the Darpan portal of Niti Aayog and all that, there are universities which are recorded as voluntary agencies. The South Asia University, Delhi, is a voluntary organization. The Birla Institute of Technology, Pilani, is recorded as a voluntary agency. So all that money which goes to the private universities, autonomous universities, etc., are also part of this. And this number is also on a declining mode. So support from it. And what do you go to international agencies? I still remember we used to bring a report, citizens report on governance and development. Once we went to the Prime Minister, one of the former Prime Ministers gave a copy of the report to him. And finally he said, Jagdanandi, tell us, where are you getting resources to do this kind of work? Then, smilingly I asked the Prime Minister, Prime Minister ji, aap bataiye, which ministry, which arm of the government can support this initiative, which gives a very, and you think it's a very important report, this is a perfect civil society work. Then he smiled at me. He said, what about this entity, that entity? Then finally, after 5 minutes, we realized no government agency is, suitable or positioned to provide support for this kind of work, innovative work, which is an upbeat work actually. So therefore, for innovative work, we go to international agencies, and then after trying it out, if the pilot is successful, we can go back to the government and we can think of a scheme from the government. But today that resource is declining. On the CSR front, after 2013, the amount is growing. Now, 18-19, we had about almost 18,653 crores, which is a big money. But unfortunately, this money is not coming to the voluntary sector, all of that. The whole basket is not coming to the voluntary sector. The basket is, half of the basket is going to their own corporate foundations. And about another 10% or even 20% of that is going to the government created funds like PM Care Fund, Swachh Ganga Fund, water sanitation programs of the government, etc., etc. So very minuscule money is from the CSR is coming to the sector actually. And in the individual donations, which is the Bain Philanthropy Report, from 10-11 to 18-19, there has been quantum jump. And individual donations are also corporate donations outside the CSR grants. And this is growing up, but this money is also going for scientific research to universities and to government kitty also, including Chief Minister's Relief Fund, Prime Minister's Relief Fund, and also bulk of that is going to entities other than development work. And before I close this slide and come to my last slide, the international fund, the FCRA fund, which I showed, bulk of that money besides the educational institutions, health institution, that also goes to religious institutions. There are top, 5 recipients, and if you go a little further, so they are all religious organizations. Maybe some of them are doing good societal work, but they are religious entities actually. So that means, out of all this, there is a very, the resource is literally skewed at this point of time, and this is something which we need to really think when we are discussing about the, social stock exchange, possibility and window. What are the challenges right now? I have already said that declining international funding, which is really impacting innovative work, rights-based activities. Government would be very happy to give you some resources to do 20 paikhanas. But if you raise questions, if you want to really see why MGNREGA is not functioning, or Pradhan Mantri Kisan Yojana is not functioning in a particular state, I think, there is no funding actually for that. How do you really question the system and ensure that these good schemes are really operational, really implemented on the ground, and you handhold the people for whom this scheme is meant for? So there is a, declining international funding is really impacting our innovative work and rights-based activities. Corporate foundations, corporate philanthropies are becoming now direct because of their branding exercise, their branding work. So many of them have floated foundations, and the operational budgets are very high, but yet they would like to do their work themselves. And as such, and many times state governments, union government, when they invite voluntary sector participation, the threshold limit is so high that only corporate foundations can join there because they have big kitty in their, in their basket. So there is an unhealthy competition by direct implementation role by corporate foundations. India's shift from recipient to donor country actually. Now India is part of international biradari, our new role in international development cooperation. And Ravi facilitated a wonderful dialogue recently last month with the Ministry of External Affairs and with the Additional Secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs. We could see how the effort of the government through Development Partnership Administration is shifting. And I saw almost we are spending about 8,000 crores in development cooperation budget of the country. 8,000 crores there where money is going outside, Mauritius, Afghanistan, Myanmar, their small little development work to Africa, to Latin America. That is it. So India is shifting from a recipient country to a donor country of the South. Restrictive regulatory measures, increased controls, lack of authentic database. We don't have an authentic database. Today, there are myriad of trusts who are registered, who work as development organizations, but that data is not available other than Maharashtra, Gujarat and Rajasthan, where there is a charity commissioner. And all other states, trust registration data is unavailable actually. And there are myriad of them. Disclosure platform is missing, so even if we want to become transparent, we want to upload all our information, beyond our website we can't go. And there are many who do not have a website. So self-regulatory initiative is very, very important. And in the SSC context, this is very, very important. And then finally, the institutional development and capacity building. Now, we have seen during COVID that digital fitness is very, very important. And if the organization is not digitally fit, you can't even talk to each other. How do you build systems and processes in your respective organization? How do you build higher accountability standards? Because I have always seen, I've looked at the legitimacy accountability issue, and Dr. Sathe mentioned it. Around the world, I have seen there are many countries, including our country, where some of the organizations have set a very high standard of accountability. But how do you really move beyond that? Move beyond one entity to the whole sector, actually. That requires some resources. Cost of impact assessment. How do you see that our work is outcome oriented, impact oriented? Institutional cost. Employees' statutory benefits are even denied under the grant-in-aid system of the government. So therefore, this is a very good moment. There is a very good time to look for alternative possibilities. And I'm sure Social Stock Exchange is planning to offer some alternative basket of choices. And I'm sure Balak Subramanianji and all of you have done so much work on that. We would listen to that. But this is a perfect timing if we want to meet these challenges, if we want to meet these cracks, if we want to meet those deficits. I think we have to be extremely creative, extremely innovative in our approach. With these words, let me, before I thank, let me say one word. There is no basis to say that only, many times we hear in the public domain that voluntary sector doesn't file their accounts and reports. And in my last meeting at the Niti Aayog, they said even about less than 2 lakh agencies, they file their reports returns. So but let me tell you, there is no basis to say that Only a small percentage of them file returns. Nobody counts or monitors those returns. Several hundred agencies and offices get data which doesn't get aggregated actually, because there is no system for it. Systemic reform of the institutional and legal framework for our sector is long overdue, but its absence doesn't imply that the societal, developmental, and professional contributions of our sector, it should be ignored, decreed, and devalued. So it's a great sector. I'm so happy that, I got this opportunity to share some of my thoughts with you. Thank you all.